Did you know that the sound food isn't actually canon to One Piece? And the portal food isn't actually a portal food in One Piece. This is every fruit in Blox Fruits compared to One Piece. And starting off, the very first fruit we got here is the rocket fruit from Blox Fruits. And a lot of you might be wondering, what fruit is this actually in One Piece? Because before, the rocket fruit obviously used to be the kilo fruit, and that was an entirely different fruit. But now that they updated this fruit, the fruit that it resembles from One Piece is actually the Roketo no Mi. And this was a fruit used by Baby 5 during the Dressrosa arc. And the fruit is literally exactly the same in the show, except that in Blox Fruit, it actually has a few extra abilities. Moving on to the next fruit, we got the spin fruit, and this is obviously the Gura no Mi. In One Piece, this fruit gives the user the power to turn any body part into something that rotates, which basically just lets them to fly. And this fruit was eaten by Buffalo, and he first appears in episode 618 of One Piece. And as you can see, when he spins and flies in the sky, it's exactly the same as Blox Fruits, except in Blox Fruits you spin your legs, not really your head. The next fruit that we got here is honestly a fan favorite, and that is the chop fruit. And in One Piece, this is called the Bara no Mi. And according to the wiki, this makes you a splitting human. And I'm pretty sure all of you should already know who owns this fruit. It's obviously Buggy, a fan favorite character, and he showed up first in episode 8 of the show. And a pretty cool similarity of both of these fruits is that in the show, Buggy actually does not take any damage from swords, even when they use Hawk, and that's the exact same in Blox Fruits. So I find it really cool that they added this feature to the game as well. Honestly, good work from the dev. The next fruit that we got here is the spring fruit, and this is the Bane no Mi, which basically turns the user into a spring human. And this was eaten by Bellamy, who used to be one of the most hated characters in the show. And it turns your legs into springs, and it basically just lets you jump around. The direct English translation is boing boing fruit, which is honestly really funny. The next fruit that we got here is the bomb fruit from Blox Fruits. It's the Bamu no Mi, and this turns the person that eats it into a bomb human. The current user of this fruit in One Piece is Gem, and he first showed up in episode 65. Basically, the way the fruit works in One Piece is that you have to explode a part of your body to use the explosion power of the fruit. He flicks off his boogers at his enemies and he makes them explode, which is kind of disgusting, but it's honestly the smartest way to use the powers of the fruit. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the smoke fruit. And in One Piece, this is called the Moku no Mi. This turns the user that eats it into a smoke human. And this was actually eaten by another fan favorite character, and that is Captain Smoker, or Vice Admiral Smoker, I guess. He first showed up in episode 48 of this show, and he honestly destroyed the crap out of Luffy. This fruit is a logia in-game and in the show, and the abilities that I've seen used are honestly really similar. In One Piece, Smoker can actually extend parts of his body using the fruit and attack his enemies from all these weird angles, but it doesn't really work like that in Blox Fruits. Well, I guess it would be really hard to replicate. That's why they decided to just keep it to the basic abilities. Moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the spike fruit, and this is called the Toge no Mi, and it turns the user into a spike human. And this fruit is owned by Zala. It first shows up in One Piece in episode 170. This fruit in One Piece basically lets you turn any body part into the spike, but unlike the Blox Fruits version, it actually let the user spawn in spikes from the floor, so this representation isn't really that accurate. But I see why the Blox Fruits devs made the fruit the way they did. It's honestly just a way cooler way to use the ability. Moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the flame fruit, and this is a fan favorite for the One Piece community. This is the Mera no Mi, and this is owned by Portgasgi Ace, Luffy's brother. It works almost the same way as it does in One Piece, but the only difference is that Ace in the show actually cannot fly. In Blox Fruits, you have an ability of this fruit called Flame Flight, which literally just lets you take off into the air, but this is actually a power that is not replicated in the One Piece anime. Not sure why Ace never discovered this power. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the Falcon fruit, the Tori no Mi, Model Falcon. And this was actually eaten by a character that not a lot of you might remember. It was Pell. It was actually one of the people that was defending Vivi during the Alabasta arc. But this fruit is not the same as it is in Blox Fruit. Unlike Blox Fruits where you can just spawn in wings, in One Piece, this fruit lets the user turn into a falcon, literally a whole bird that can also let people ride on top of you, similar to the Love Fruit's flamingo ability. But I'm pretty sure the Blox Fruits devs nerfed the crap out of this fruit because you need to have at least some bad fruits. Not every fruit in the game could be really overpowered, so I understand why they did this. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the ice fruit. This is called the Hi no Mi. Hopefully I'm pronouncing these right. Pretty sure I butchered like half the pronunciations in this video. And this fruit was eaten by Kuzan. This fruit is honestly really overpowered in the anime. I'm pretty sure it's one of the best fruits in the whole verse. They've copied most of its abilities, and they even gave this fruit an awakening, which kind of makes sense because I'm pretty sure Kuzan has awakened his fruit. But there isn't much to recap for this one. The fruit is honestly really similar, and the abilities just ice. It isn't that hard to mess up. Anyways, the next fruit that I got on this list is the sand fruit, and this is called the Suna no Mi. And this turns the user into a sand human, and this was eaten by another fan favorite character and longtime villain, Crocodile. And this fruit basically gives you sand-like powers, just like it does in Blox Fruit. This fruit's weakness is actually water. Well, every fruit's weakness is water, but water affects this fruit a lot more. That's literally how Luffy defeated this guy. But the abilities of this fruit are pretty similar, except for the sand prism ability, which they kind of stole from Naruto. But other than that, every single ability, I'm pretty sure crocodile has used before. It's honestly really cool. The next food that we got here is the dark fruit, and this is called the Yami Yami no Mi, and it turns the user into a darkness human. I'm pretty sure all of you should know the user of this food, Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard. It lets you hit people with basic darkness attacks, and you also have some pretty cool abilities like the black hole. But in the show, this fruit is completely different. It literally lets the user take away the fruit powers of their opponent. It's literally a nerf for every single fruit. Definitely a top 10 in the whole verse. Moving on, the next fruit that I got here is the diamond fruit, and it's called the Kira Kira no Mi, and it turns the user into a diamond human. This fruit was eaten by Josu, and he first appears in episode 463. The fruit in One Piece is similar to Blox fruits. It lets turn the user's skin in diamond, and that is literally the base ability of this fruit in One Piece. The next fruit that I got here is the light fruit, and it's called the Pika Pika no Mi, and this fruit is used by Kizaru. Works exactly the same as it does in Blox fruits, and the fruit even has an awakening where you can upgrade the abilities to look so much cooler. But I'm pretty sure that in One Piece, this fruit literally lets you travel at the speed of light, which isn't really possible in Blox fruits, because if you traveled at the speed of light, then you will be able to fly out of the map in literally like 2 seconds. It wouldn't make sense. The next fruit that we got here is the rubber fruit. It's called the Gomu Gomu no Mi. This fruit was eaten by the protagonist Monkey D. Luffy. And the cool thing about this fruit in Blox fruits is that every single ability used in this fruit has been used by Luffy all the way up to Gear 2, which is the transformation of the fruit in Blox fruit. If they ever added an awakening for the fruit and added some of the other gears, that would honestly be really cool. But Gear 2 is honestly one of the most iconic gears. And the Blox fruit devs did an amazing job, and it's one of the reasons I love the rubber fruit. Moving on, the next fruit that I got here is the barrier fruit, called the Bari Bari no Mi. And this fruit is used by Bartolomeo, one of the most annoying characters in the whole show. It lets the user spawn in an unbreakable wall, which is the exact same in Blox fruits, except in Blox fruits it has a timer, which is way shorter than it should be. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the ghost fruit. It's called the Yomi Yomi no Mi, and it turns the user into a reviving human. And this was eaten by everybody's favorite skeleton, Brook. And this gives you the power to come back to life. The abilities of the fruit are pretty similar, but they're not entirely accurate. I mean, one thing that they got right is the user turns into a ghost after they die the first time, which is honestly really funny. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit on this list is the magma fruit, called the Magu Magu no Mi. This fruit was eaten by one of the most hated characters in the whole show, Akainu. This fruit first showed up in episode 463, and it's one of the most powerful fruits in the whole verse. And the awakening honestly represents this fruit really well, except for that one ability where you ride on top of a magma beast, which isn't really shown in One Piece, so I'm pretty sure Akainu does not have the ability to do that. Moving on, the next fruit on this list is the Quake fruit, and in One Piece this is called the Gura Gura no Mi, and this fruit is owned by Whitebeard. This fruit basically just lets the user create quakes, which can just bring forth a butt ton of destruction. Look at these quakes when Whitebeard punches the air. It's literally done perfectly in Blox fruit, and even better in the awakened version of the fruit. Moving on, the next fruit here is the Buddha fruit, called the Hito Hito no Mi model Daibutsu. This fruit was eaten by Sengoku, the fleet admiral in One Piece. This fruit works exactly the same, but people in Blox fruits don't use it for the same reason. People in the game just use it to grind. They only use it for its long range. In One Piece, a lot more of its powers are shown, and that's unfortunately not the case in Blox fruits. Moving on, the next fruit on this list is the love fruit, called the Mero Mero no Mi. This fruit allows you to attack people with love, and this fruit was eaten by Boa Hancock, one of the warlords, or ex-warlord I should say. But this fruit's powers are honestly shown really well, but her most powerful ability is not shown in Blox fruit. That ability is turning anybody into stone. Imagine how overpowered it would be if you were fighting someone with the love fruit and they literally just turn you into stone. Moving on, next is the spider fruit. This is called the Ito Ito no Mi. If you started playing Blox fruits a while ago, then you should know that the spider fruit used to be called the string fruit, and it was changed for a copyright reason. The string fruit is used by Don Quixote do Flamingo, one of the best villains of all time, and its abilities are honestly really accurate. Except for in the anime, the fruit actually has an awakening, which is honestly really overpowered. It literally lets the user turn everything they touch into string, which is not the case in Blox fruit. The next fruit on the list is the sound fruit. This fruit in the anime is called the Yuta Yuta no Mi, and this fruit isn't really canon to the anime. It was actually shown in One Piece film Bread, and this was used by Yuta during that movie. It basically lets the user get a lot of sound-based powers, as well as trap their enemies in another dimension. That's really overpowered, and I'm starting to realize why they did not add this power to Blox fruit. Just not be fair at all. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit here is the Phoenix fruit, and in One Piece this is called the Tori Tori no Mi model Phoenix, and this was eaten by Marco, and it turns the user into a full-fledged Phoenix, and it gives them a butt ton of healing powers, which is honestly done really well in Blox fruits. I'm pretty sure it's the only fruit in the game that actually has healing powers, so that's one really unique thing about it. And in One Piece, that's honestly one of the main uses of this fruit. Marco uses the fruit to heal himself and others. Moving on, the next fruit we got here is the portal fruit, and if you played Blox fruits a long time ago, you should know that the portal fruit used to be called the door fruit. That's why in One Piece this fruit is called the Doa Doa no Mi. And one of the main powers of this fruit is pretty much being able to open a door anywhere, which means you can open a door from one part of the world and get to another. It's basically just teleportation. That's why they changed it to the portal fruit. And the user of this fruit in the show is Biano, one of the villains at the Water 7 arc. Moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the Rumble fruit, and this is called the Goro Goro no Mi. And it turns the user into a lightning human. And this fruit was eaten by Enel. And honestly, Luffy would not have won against this guy if he did not have the rubber fruit. Rubber doesn't conduct electricity, which means his power is useless against Luffy, which is really lore accurate as well as life accurate, because that's how it works in real life. The next fruit here is called the Pain fruit. And in the anime, this is called the Niku Niku no Mi. In Blox fruits before, this fruit used to be called the Paw fruit, but they obviously changed it for copyright. This fruit is owned by Bartholomew Kuma. It gives the user the ability to use paw attacks, or at least attacks shaped like paws. And they can also remove the pain from other users in the anime, which isn't really shown in Blox fruits, and then just shooting it at someone else. But it did give us one of the most iconic scenes of the anime. The next fruit on this list is the Blizzard fruit, and this is called the Yuki Yuki no Mi. This lets the user control and turn into snow anytime they want. This fruit was used by Monet in episode 607, but this is honestly a fruit that's not used that much. And in the anime, this is also a forgotten fruit. Most people don't even remember it exists. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit here is the Gravity fruit, and this is called the Zushi Zushi no Mi. And this fruit was eaten by Fujitora. And in the anime, this gives the user the power to just change gravity in any place that they choose. So if you wanted to destroy someone in 2 seconds, you would just multiply the gravity around them to like 1,000 so that they just slam into the floor. But in Blox fruits, this works differently. It kind of just gives you the power to summon meteors, which makes sense according to the fruit's nature, but you should be able to use a lot more powers theoretically. The next fruit here is the Mammoth fruit, and in the anime, this is called the Zozo no Mi Model Mammoth. And this is an ancient Zoan type devil fruit which allows the user to turn into a mammoth. This fruit was eaten by Jack, one of Kaido's henchmen. But in the anime, we don't actually see Jack use many of his fruit-based powers. It's honestly just for its looks. So this fruit was kind of an intimidation tactic in the anime. But his hybrid form is honestly really, really cool. It's a shame that they don't have it in Blox fruit. The next fruit here is the T-Rex fruit, called the Riru no Mi model Brachiosaurus. Brachiosaurus? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And it's owned by Queen, another one of Kaido's henchmen. And this fruit basically just lets him turn into a dinosaur, but this isn't really a T-Rex, so it isn't entirely accurate. And honestly looks a lot different. The color is even off. This fruit is probably the worst replication from Blox fruit, but it's still pretty cool to see a dinosaur fruit in the game. The next fruit that we got here is the Dough fruit, and this is the Mochi Mochi no Mi, and it was eaten by Charlotte Katakuri. This fruit basically turns the user into a mochi human, which if you guys don't know, mochi is a type of Japanese candy, which is kind of dough-like, which is why the Blox fruits devs decided to name the fruit Dough, because that's the most similar name you could come up with. This fruit is one of the most overpowered fruits in the whole game, and might even be the strongest in some people's opinion. The roller donut ability is one of the coolest abilities in the whole game, and it's also shown in the anime when Katakuri was fighting against Luffy. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit that I got here is the Shadow fruit, and in the anime this is called the Kage Kage no Mi, and it was eaten by Moria, the ruler of the shadows. And in the anime it's honestly a lot more overpowered. It basically lets you command an army of really overpowered zombies, which you obviously cannot do in Blox fruits because that would be way too overpowered. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit on this list is the Venom fruit, and in the anime this is called the Doku Doku no Mi, and it turns the user into a poison human. This fruit is used by Magellan, and this character almost achieved something that most other characters in the anime did not. He almost killed the main character. I mean, this was a close one, but let's not get sidetracked. This fruit's abilities are honestly really cool, and they're replicated really well in Blox fruits, but I hate to say, but this fruit is way more overpowered in One Piece. The Toxic Smoke ability, where you spawn in a fog around you that deals poison damage, kind of replicates it, but it's not really the same thing. Anyways, moving on, the next fruit here is the Control fruit, and this is called the Ope Ope no Mi in One Piece, and it turns the user into a free modification human. Honestly, a really weird way to say it. But this fruit in the show was eaten by another fan favorite character, Trafalgar D. Law. It basically lets the user spawn in a huge dome around them, and it just lets them manipulate most things in the dome, unless the haki of the user is too powerful. And the same goes for Blox fruit. Moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the Spirit fruit, and this is called the Sora Sora no Mi, which was eaten by Charlotte Linlin. Not directly, because everyone knows what happened if you watch the show. This fruit basically gives the user the ability to manipulate souls. So in the anime, you can literally take away someone's life force and put it into inanimate objects, things like trees, grass, fruits, and literally like anything, and give them a consciousness. But you can't really do that in Blox fruits. The buddies slash homies that you get are kind of part of your abilities. Moving on, the next fruit that we got here is the Dragon fruit. This is called Uu no Mi. The official English translation is fish fruit model Azure Dragon. So I guess it is kind of a dragon, but it's more of a fish. I'm pretty sure the actual dragon fruit is owned by Dragon. What? Anyways, this fruit in the anime has two different transformations. The first one is the hybrid mode and the second one is the full dragon. And the full dragon transformation is actually what we get in Blox fruit. It's honestly really cool and all the abilities are replicated really well, especially the blast breath, which is one of Kaido's iconic moves. The next fruit that we got here is the leopard fruit, and in the anime this is the Neko no Mi model leopard, and this is obviously used by Roblox. And the pretty cool thing about this fruit is that in the anime it actually has an awakening, which makes it a lot more powerful. But I understand why the Blox fruit devs did not give this fruit an awakening, because it's already one of the top 5 fruits in the whole game. If they gave it an awakening, it would just be way too overpowered. But I really like what they did with this fruit. It's combining the airwalk as well as the finger pistol. The next fruit that we got here is the Kitsune fruit, and in the anime this is called the Inu no Mi model Okuchi no Makami. This fruit was eaten by Yamato, one of the fan favorite characters of the whole show, and it basically just lets you transform into a fox. I mean, the color isn't the same because in the anime the transformation is actually a full white fox, but in Blox fruits it's a full blue fox. But the ability is honestly really accurate. In One Piece it's a really overpowered fruit, and the same goes for Blox fruit. It might even be the best fruit in the whole game. That's pretty much it.